afternoon, everybody. I got caught out by that musical intro, which is new for us. So I hope you like that. Let us know in the comments box. Good afternoon. My name is James. Normally, I'm joined by Joe, my co-host on the Retained Recruiter show. But today, it happens once a year. It's Joe's birthday. So we've given her the afternoon off so she can spend time with her family. But I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by a very special guest. A very close friend of mine. His name is Paul Hickey. He's the managing director of Grass Greener Group, a boutique recruitment firm in the north of England. But perhaps more importantly, for the sake of clarity and openness, Paul is also the co-founder of iIntro. So, Paul, good afternoon.
Hi, James. Thank you.
Yeah, no, nice to see you again. Now, today, we've got a really interesting topic that I hope many of you who are actually watching this, either live or on replay, and please do let us know in the comments box. I hope that it's a journey that you yourself are considering, because Paul went on a very specific journey of transitioning his recruitment firm from what we're all used to, which is a contingent transactional CV supply service firm, to more of a consultative retained recruitment business. And Paul's going to share with us that journey. And so please do listen in closely. There's some really interesting pieces of information that are going to help you understand whether it's something that you wish to participate on. And indeed, if you do, we'll share with you how we can sort of help take you on that journey. But Paul, let's start with a brief introduction of yourself, your background, and of course, your business interests.
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. For those who don't know me, Paul Hickey. And in 2006, I got into recruitment with a business in Leeds, where we were working predominantly on a contingency basis. And then myself and two other chaps decided that we were leaving and going to set up our own recruitment company, but do it better than what the other company were doing it. So that's how Grass Greener Group started in 2007. So I was just a year in and went for it and decided to set up this recruitment company with the memorable name Grass Greener Group. And so we started out as contingency recruiters and working in various different sectors, but typically with salespeople, perhaps mid-management level. So a sweet spot of salary back then, and by the way, obviously I'm going back a few years, it was probably around 40, 50, 60,000 pound salary. And we were attempting to charge 25, 30%, but it never happened. Typically our average fee was around 15% there or thereabouts. And in terms of monetary value, I mean, obviously it fluctuated, but typically averaged out fees of around £7,000, that typical sort of mid-level recruitment area, if you will.
Paul, it's interesting because you said that what you decided to do is try and do it better than everybody else, setting up your own business as what must have been quite a young man in terms of those heady days of 15, 16 years ago. And obviously giving your business a name was quite important, and obviously sort of jumping into business with colleagues, associates, friends. What type of experience did that? How did that sort of pan out for you?
Well, I mean, it was great to start with. It was in the days where you could, we put in some money and borrowed some money to get things going, and we quickly recruited, and in no time we were a team of about 15 people. Not all consultants, but probably about 10 were, and then some obviously admin assistants, etc. And then came the recession, 2008. Moving into 2009, and we got the shock of our lives. And when you look back at it now, obviously we live to tell the tale. But at the time, it was, I mean, just like a ton of bricks on your head. We had not so much contracts because we were contingency, but we had assignments with one particular company. It was a division of 3M, these companies in the world, and we were, we had at the time about 20 searches with them, and it was, at the time it was good as gold. I mean, we had probably 4 or 5 candidates that had been given offers and accepted, and they were waiting to start. We had another sort of group of candidates who were at first and second stage interview and were looking good, and we got all of the team on it. I mean, we'd been given this great opportunity. It was going to at the time make us a small fortune, plus we had other clients in other sectors, etc. And we were counting the pounds as young entrepreneurs, and everything was going well. Then all of a sudden the recession hit, and we went for nearly 6 months. Everything just paused or stopped. The division of 3M just pulled, they came to us and said, we're really, really sorry, it's not personal, but there's a recruitment freeze. So all of a sudden we've got 20, 30 vacancies with those and other companies, and we're not going to get any money for them. In fact, we didn't get any money for them. So it was a a real shocker, and we had to beg, steal, and borrow for 12-18 months to get through it.
Well, I suppose like any young business owner at the time, I mean, what you're doing is you're not only chasing the dream, but actually chasing the money and chasing those particular opportunities. And I'd imagine most people listening in today, and maybe not everybody, have actually sort of worked that contingent market and know that that jam tomorrow it's like a drug. You always think I can fill that role, and so to then go through that period where you get everything just sort of wiped clean off the table without something like furlough. I never had any furlough in that particular time, in that particular recession. So you're sort of left high and dry. And I suppose that was a catalyst for you and your business to think about, how do we move forward? Or how do we survive? But then how do we move forward?
That's exactly what happened. And my now business partner, Plamen Ivanov, who people may be familiar with, Plamen was a friend of mine at the time, and he had a small share in the business anyway. But he came into the business and looked at what we could do in terms of how we could survive, improve, and then thrive. And to be fair, he suggested that what we were doing was crazy, because he looked at the stats. He was a numbers man. He came from the finance industry, and he said, look guys, you're working on between 5 and 10 vacancies, or between 5 and 10 companies to make one placement. They pay you approximately half of what you're expecting, because you've no contract with them as such. It's engagement via stealth. And you're just hoping and praying that things go in your direction. And clearly they were, but now they haven't. And you're in a bit of a crisis mode. So what can we do moving forward that's different? How can you get some predictability in your business? And that's when he said to us, why don't you ask companies to pay you up front? and we rolled about laughing. We said, he's stupid. That's not how recruitment works. Why would somebody pay us to go and do something that they can have other companies go and do, not for free, but they only have to pay if they get the result that they're looking for? Yeah. And he said, well, that's how the wider world works. It's just a bit of a bubble that you've been educated in recruitment this way, but that's not how the real world works. That's not how your accountant works, your lawyer, your gardener, your car valeter. They want paying for what they do. So by hook or by crook, he kind of convinced us, and he said, look, what have you got to lose by starting to ask companies for a retainer? Even if it's a couple of grand up front, at least you've got a contract with them. And if they pull out, they change their mind, they renege, something happens, you've got some cover. And if you need to part ways for any reason, you're going to recover at least some money.
That contract that you didn't have, the contract in inverted commas with the division of 3M that you mentioned. You didn't have a contract, but you were working on lots of opportunities. They pull the plug.
That's what to me, that's what contingency is. It's working on good faith, but typically it's always good faith on part of the recruitment consultant, and very rarely good faith on part of the employer, because there's a multitude of things that could go wrong. And it's not always doing it intentionally.
No, everyone has their own business interest, don't they?
Recruitment's unique, isn't it? You're dealing with two sets of people. You're dealing with a candidate and his or her family and friends and advisors and emotion and all the rest of it. And you're also dealing with on the client side, perhaps with a group of stakeholders who've all got different opinions and wants and needs and things like that. So it's flipping difficult from that perspective to have any predictability. So we decided, do you know what have we got to lose? Let's set about creating a service, because you can't just ask for a retainer for doing the same stuff you're doing on a contingent basis.
Paul, before you get to that piece where I think you're heading, you say, what did you have to lose? What did you lose?
Nothing.
What happened to your team?
We lost some of the team.
Now, I know you're not a regular guest on this show, but hopefully you're listening every week, Paul, of course. And you'll hear that one of the things that Joe and I quite often talk to people about is the fact that mindset is it makes a huge difference in terms of the way that you approach it. And it sounds like in your story that, although you shared the vision and were prepared to try something, others in your business were reticent to try something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not for everybody. If you're going to move into the retained world, which we've learned over time, you need the right attitude. You need to be the right kind of person to start with. You need to want to do things right. And I hear a lot of language in recruitment that doesn't sit well with me, talking about not talking about people and their needs and their requirements, talking about fees all the time, talking about units, talking about boarding something. These are impersonal things. And if that's your language, then, you know, Retained's probably not for you. We all want to make money and we all want to do well. But our philosophy has been, and it's a Zig Ziglar quote, if you can help enough other people get what they want, you can have everything you want. And that's always been our philosophy, to do things right and help people. And typically the rewards will follow.
And I suppose you go back to the members of your team, you know, that the other old adage that goes, if you keep on doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And your people didn't see, well, sorry, your people, some of your team weren't prepared to try something different in the face of, you know, adversity. I'm saying, you know, I'm assuming things were pretty tough at the time.
Well, do you know what though? Retrospectively, looking back, that's probably the best thing that ever happened to us. You know, you can't. I mean, you know, this session's called 100% contingency to 100% retained because that's what we did. But you know, that's not for everybody. You don't need to take all of your business retained. There's still a market for contingency and people who want to operate on a contingency method within a business. It might be a different brand or it's a different proposition. But it doesn't mean that, you know, if somebody's listening to this and they're a recruitment company of 10, 20, 30 people, you don't have to do it all tomorrow with everybody. But, you know, if you think that taking part of your business to a more of a predictable model, which benefits, in my view, it benefits selfishly the recruiter, but very much the client and the candidate as well. Then, you know, it doesn't need to be everybody, just a small selection to start with and see how you get on.
Cool. So you'd had a new business partner come into the business, a silent partner who's become a bit more active. He'd actually given you some advice that essentially you're crazy because you're working the majority of your week for free and only getting paid for a certain element of it. He sounded crazy himself because he's saying to experienced recruiters, you don't know what you're doing, go out and ask for some money. So you went out and tried it. What happened?
Well, we did. So there's sort of an interim part where, if you think about the timescales, we're sort of talking about the time of 2009, 2010. And if you think about technology, you know, these things here had just come out.
Babies.
These things here were not yet out. But that's a sort of a side passion of mine, sort of technology. So we're thinking, well, what can we do? What can we offer that's different to a contingency model? Firstly, how can we slow it down and get it right? The problem with contingency is it's all fast paced. It's kind of, you know, with all due respect, I'm not being, you know, I'm not talking down contingency recruiters, because there's some great people who do really well in that sector. All I'm saying is that we feel that recruitment can be done better, and it's not about stacking it high and selling it cheap. It can be about slowing it down and doing it properly, and getting a really good result. And for me, the result is not placing a candidate, nor should it be. That shouldn't be the measure of the result from the hiring company either. It's not about. People have a misconception that recruitment's about placing candidates and hiring people. It's not. It's about ensuring that they're in that role for the long term. Okay. That's what's really important. So we thought, what can we do in our process, in our evaluation process, in our preparation, to actually try and figure out a way to increase longevity of placements? And if we could come up with something that both did that and saved our clients time and money in the process, we'd sort of get the holy grail. Yeah. So I bought an iPad. I bought an iPad when they first came out. And I thought, well, this is a nice presentation tool. And we set about building what has become our intro, which was it was a platform, and it was a spreadsheet, and it was using the camera on the iPad to record videos and things like that. So we thought, if we can get candidates to record videos, and by the way, in those days, I know it's not that long ago, sort of 12 years ago, but 12, 13 years ago, people didn't have recording devices at home. They typically had Nokia phones or something like that. Sony Ericsson's couldn't record. The broadband wasn't fast enough to send. They had desktops, not laptops, at work. Things like that. So it was a bit of a nightmare, but we got there in the end. And I went to Belgium to present to a big chemicals company who were expecting us to work contingency, probably for around 20%. And I went steaming into this meeting with my with loads of confidence, young man, and the iPad. And I said, this is my presentation, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to get candidates to do videos. We're going to do some assessments. We're going to get them to answer some of your key questions that you'd like to know more about the candidates before interview and how they think. We're going to get some references for you, and we're going to stick it all together in this bit of software, and that's how we're going to present it to you.
Wow.
And the guy signed our retainer there and then. We took 5 different proposals with them. It was in a restaurant. We'll see how it goes, and then we'll present the one that's best suited. And he signed it there and then. So we walked away with a 30% fee of a salary that was about 170,000 euros at the time. And
that's a lovely story, and obviously it's a journey that people are going on. And if you yourself want to experience that, please do click that you saw flash up on the screen, retainedroadmap.com, and you can download the roadmap yourselves and have a look at some of the things that Paul is actually talking about in terms of the journey. So, Paul, this lovely story, you've actually gone out there, bold as brash, with your technology. It's not just about video assessment. I know that sort of leads sometimes, but I think it's multiple layers of scientific and objective assessment that you sort of bring to that. And so that really was the foundation of our intro, was it not?
That's exactly how it started. And we were undergoing some training. We started to rebuild our team again with people who wanted to do and were able to do retained work. And you've got to recruit a different type of person. They might not even have recruitment background, by the way. So we set about doing that. And the guy who was training as a renowned recruitment trainer said to us, guys, what you've developed here is really interesting for a couple of reasons. Firstly, in terms of the longevity of placement, I can see that by going through this due diligence with the candidates and the company, that you're going to get great results. I can just envisage it. That's how it's going to be. But at the same time, I can see why a company would understand that the work that you're doing can't be done on a contingency basis. And if they want to get it right, they need to work with you as a genuine partner, treat you like they treat their other partners and suppliers, and engage with you in some kind of financial way with a contract. The money's not the most important part. I mean, we charge on 3 stages almost always, but you can get a retainer for £1 or $1 or €1. The point is, you've got a contract in place that ensures that no matter the outcome within reason, you're going to get paid. And that's the most important part. And this trainer said, look, I work with 10 other recruitment companies, and I'm sure they'd all be interested in if you could create a solution, a product, a platform, some training and all the rest of it. If you could create something that you could kind of white label and offer to them as their own solution, I'm sure there'd be a load of interest. And that's how we met, James. We went to present to a group of about 20 companies at the IOD in London that had come together and were interested in doing good things in recruitment. And of course, at the time, you were MD of another recruitment company, and you came along and said, listen, if you can get this to us in our colours and set up for us, we'll buy it from you. Yeah. So that's where our intro was born, about 2000, as a white labeled solution for other companies. And what you've got to remember is we learned a lot along the way. We made all the mistakes in the early days. So when we came to you at that time, we knew a few things. We're still learning.
Well, let me take it back, Paul. It does, because you've sort of jumped at, because there's one important thing I want to share with people, because obviously this is what, this session is all about, you transitioning from being 100% contingent to 100% retained. Is that what you set out to achieve?
Not really. We wanted to take the business to about 20%, because we thought that can give us some predictable income, and we'll just keep on doing what we were doing. We're a bit reticent to change, really. Yeah. But we didn't, by hook or by crook, once we developed this solution and we were going and presenting it, we were winning almost everything. And I mean, if we went to see a company who had a genuine vacancy that fit within our parameters and scope of what we recruited, we very rarely, and still to this day, very rarely don't come away with that, with a retainer, because it's of value, it's obvious.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes, retained recruitment is sometimes, it might be semantics. Sometimes people think, is that executive search? And the one thing I want to get across to people, retained recruitment can be sold at pretty much any level. Would you agree or not?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, people, it's a misconception. Like, it might be important to recruit somebody who's earning 150, 200,000 pounds or dollars or euros basic salary. But for a lot of companies, and the world is made up mainly of SME businesses.
Yeah,
some variation in that, but for a company, I don't know, a company who makes something industrial, for argument's sake,
yeah,
they want to recruit a salesperson on 40 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand. They've got to get it right. They want to get it right. It's so expensive getting it wrong that they want to get it right. And as I said before, if we can help them to reduce their own commercial downtime in terms of interviewing irrelevant candidates and make it so that they only have to interview a couple of relevant candidates,
yeah,
then it's a win-win situation.
It is, but again, think of yourself. But go back to your days as a contingent recruiter. What you said there is, it putting in front of the client or the potential client only, relevant candidates. Every recruiter thinks that's what they do, though, Paul.
Yeah, well, they think.
How do you prove to the client that doesn't work?
Well, we ask them for their stats.
Yeah. Okay.
Not by proving anything with our own stats, because they're not believable until things develop and they see it for themselves. But I think when you work in contingency, you've got to work fast, because there's another 3 recruiters chasing you down who want that vacancy, or perhaps are working on that vacancy as well.
Yeah.
So rather than going in there and talking about the job and how quickly you can find candidates and things like that, you've got to get a little bit deeper. You're sat there for a reason. If a company allows you to go and see them, or to give you an hour of their time online, then they've got a problem, or they don't have time to sit with recruiters all day, so they've got a problem. What's that problem? Something's broken, and it's typically not just that a candidate's left. They get this on repeat all the time. So what's wrong in their recruitment process in terms of deciphering what it is that they're looking for and who it is that they're looking for, finding them, interviewing them, hiring them, onboarding them, and keeping them? So what's wrong in those processes? And you go with your calculator and you ask them questions that relate back to numbers and stats.
Yeah.
And that's not a clever sales technique. That's logical. So how much time do you spend interviewing? How many people are involved in interviewing? How many candidates do you typically see? How many recruiters do you work with? How much time do you have to brief recruiters, take feedback back and forth? You work it all out. How many candidates do you hire? How many candidates stay? How long do they stay for? And you can crunch these numbers relatively quickly. And if you can sit there with them using their words to figure out what their costs are, they're typically really shocked.
Yeah.
That over the last year they've hired 10 people, 3 of them have left, and it's cost them £500,000.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we've worked, Paul, haven't we, on building what we call the bad hire calculator. And again, it's part of the Retained Roadmap. And if you want to download the roadmap yourself, just go to retainedroadmap.com and you'll be able to sort of download and have a look at that. And obviously the bad hire calculator, what you've done is, Paul, you've taken your questioning exercise and actually technologized it, if that's the right word, to help people sort of do it really, really quickly. Because he said it's quick, and it can be quick, but not everybody's that quick on arithmetic all the time. So this sort of, we've actually helped people out with that.
There's tools there to assist, but following that process actually creates a lot more engagement between you and them. You're not actually seen at this point as a recruiter. I mean, perhaps you went through the door as a recruiter, but you sat there talking about their deeper business problems, which the other recruiters perhaps haven't done. Yeah. And now you're acting as a consultant and you're adding value to their business. And, I always say to them, there's no obligation here. I'm coming to see you and I'm going to try and help you. And sometimes, you don't do business with them, but perhaps you point them in the right direction, and what goes around comes around, and at some point that will get payback.
Good. Well, listen, I just want people just to go back and list one of the things you said in there, and that is that this isn't just about the high level vacancies. And the reason I'm saying that, Paul, is because when you started out, your first one, you said 30%, which is wow. You're at 15% before, and it was 170,000 euros, whereas your average before was probably around the 50-60 mark. But I want to bring it back to just so people understand that although we all like to talk about the big glorious roles that we get, which are not every day for most people, but I just want people to be aware that actually the techniques that you're talking about, consulting with prospects who will hopefully become clients, identifying what the challenges are for them, whether it's a 40 or 50k role in any particular currency or 150k role in any currency, then actually you can put in place a process and a service that is a true value add. It differentiates you from the market and helps you sort of go out there and deliver what the client needs, which is, as you always say to me, Paul, it's not about the employer hiring somebody. It's about hiring somebody who stays with them for the medium to long term, that they willingly want.
It's a pyramid, isn't it, James? So you've got at the top there, you've got a number of C-suite roles, and there's only so many to go around. So perhaps you might win, depending on the size of your business, a couple of those a year, or a couple of those every couple of years, and that's fine. But for a lot of companies, the bread and butter is further down. It's sort of at that mid executive, or that mid sort of commercial, technical, operational level. And those roles are just as important. But to be honest, as a recruiter, there isn't that much difference in terms of recruiting somebody who's on 150 grand or upwards of that, and somebody who's on 50, 60, 70 grand or even less than that. It's still a process that you have to go through, with some different quirks. But ultimately, from the client's point of view, never mind our point of view, from the client's point of view, the hiring team's point of view, if they can get something that goes on at Bentley and they're working at Ford, well, we'll have it, please.
Indeed, they do have that. So tell me a little bit, and tell everybody who's listening a little bit about what was the impact on your business. So you've made this transition, gradually, and I say 18 months, it's fast, but it's a gradual change. You'd lost some people. So, that happens because some people don't have the right mindset. So some people in your team, but you said it's possibly one of the best things that happened in hindsight, of course. You've transitioned your business, accidentally on purpose, in terms of being 100% contingent. What were the benefits to your business as a business owner? What were the benefits of doing this?
Well, I could sleep at night. I mean, imagine going through that. A lot of people went through it, of course. But going through that recession was really, really tough on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Getting through it, we started to recruit better people, a better quality of individual, if that makes sense, because they bought into our vision. They weren't interested in firing CVs around. They were interested in adding value. So probably it took us until maybe 2013 to a point where we could look around and go, do you know what? I actually really like everybody that works in our business. They're really good. They're really nice people. Some better than others. Yeah, which is okay. We liked everybody, and that was a big determining factor. But I think the cash flow made a real difference. Our work in progress sheet went from one that was about 5 pages long, where you had no predictability at all, to one that was perhaps much shorter, which ultimately delivered almost pound for pound deliverability in terms of knowing exactly what's coming in next week, next month. If things go wrong, we're covered. Things go wrong, don't they? Brexits come and viruses come and wars come and things like that. So we thank God when coronavirus came. Although we had companies that said we're going to pause, these things came back, or we got paid, or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Which is great. So again, Paul, as we come towards the end of the show, I want people to sort of reflect back on the journey that you've made. You're like most people, set out in business on your own. So with some colleagues, of course, thinking we're going to conquer the world, and you start to smash it, which obviously happens. Then something outside of your control changes the way you do. So it's a catalyst for you to change, and the catalyst for you to change is not just the fact you lost a client, but to evaluate. Why do I run around like a headless chicken, chasing 5 to 10 vacancies just to place one? I've got an 80 to 90%, efficiency wrong side of it, whatever, efficiency loss in my process. So why don't I do something different? And what you did, Paul, over that period of time, is revolutionary. Yeah, because what you did is you changed your processes. It's revolutionary in your business, because most people are set in their ways. They do business today the way they've always done it. Same for employers, by the way, in their recruitment process. Story for the day. But you went through that process and changed what you did. I'm sure you had some tough times. Looking back, there's fun times, tough times, all that type of stuff. But came through it and all of a sudden realized that actually there are benefits to me of doing this. The benefits are, I've got a predictable business. I've got a business which got predictable cash flow, which means me as a business owner, or I as a business owner, can sleep at night knowing that actually I can forecast. Now, for those of you who are in contract businesses, yes, you can forecast as well. But for those of you in permanent contingent businesses, your forecast isn't very far in the future.
You can forecast your staff as well, James, in as much as the people who work with us in the business now have been with us for years. I mean, we've recruited new people, but people stay with us long term. So we kind of practice what we preach when we hire people. They go through the process.
Absolutely.
and those that don't or can't or what, fine. But that's great. So the people that come on board actually stay with us long term as well, which is really important. Previously, and in a lot of contingency basis, you've got a lot of churn. And how many times a day do you read on LinkedIn, I'm burnt out? I'm burnt out in recruitment. I'm not surprised you're burnt out in recruitment if you're typically working on a contingency with a lack of predictability. So that's what can get you down.
Well, and again, a lot of time we see people, and if you do want to find out how we can help you, please do head over to the retainedroadmap.com, book some time with us, and we'll share with you what we can do and how we can help you go on that journey that Paul himself has gone. And, instead of being burned out, we get a lot of people say, I've started to fall out of love with the world of recruitment. And our job is to help you love what you do, because what's that other expression, Paul? If you love what you do,
you never have to work a day in your life again.
There you go. I didn't prime on that one, but you got it right. So well done. So
that's important, James. Being a consultant and add value to bit. Other opportunities crop up as well within that. So it's much more enjoyable. And again, it allows you to sort of sleep at night knowing that you've got cover, and you're doing things properly. You're actually, and you're not competing with 23-year-old kids that are, fall into recruitment and perhaps can use a computer faster than you can.
Yeah, indeed. Well, listen, Paul, it's been a fascinating story. And if you're going to be joining us next week, everybody, we're going to tell you how you can help your recruitment business generate recurring income, which, again, is part of this story as well. Paul won't be with us. Joe will be back with us. So we'll be sort of sharing our thoughts and views there. I hope you've been fascinated by Paul's journey. And I say, if we can help you, please do get in touch. Paul, thank you very much for sharing with your experience with us today. Fascinating journey as always. So thank you very much for joining us. So it's a goodbye from me, and it's...
See you now.
You're supposed to say goodbye from you.
I won't be invited back. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye-bye.